Welcome to the LA Real Estate Podcast, your podcast on buying and selling real estate in Los Angeles. Today, we're going to talk about the market shift. It's happening. We've been warning you for a couple of years, but it's actually happening. Natalie Salins from Movement Mortgage is going to be with us again, and we're going to discuss lots of stuff, all to do with mortgages. And also my very good, wonderful, favorite, happy, lovely real estate agent friend, Kenya Reeves-Costa, is with us again. And we were talking the other day about what do real estate agents actually do. So today we're going to talk all about that. Let's get started. So on this podcast, we're talking all about what it means to be a real estate agent. And it's a long discussion. So put your seatbelt on, grab some popcorn. Here we go. Oh, it's a very special day. I'm so excited because my twin is on the podcast today. Kenya Reeves-Costa is here. Welcome, Kenya.
Thank you. Happy to be here. How are you doing, twin?
I'm good. So Kenya and I have birthdays that are one day apart. And same year, right, Kenya? We're not going to say what it is.
Yeah, we're not going to say the year. I believe it's the same. I remember, I think it was one day and 1 year apart.
Maybe.
I think it was something like that because it was kind of funny. And I don't even remember how we discovered it. But, you know, it makes sense because I think we have a lot in common.
We do. Kenya is a wonderful, positive, smiley, happy, lovely person. And I'm so happy that you're here. So I know we talked, so Kenya and I are in touch all the time, and we were talking about what can we talk about on the podcast that people maybe don't know. And the one thing we both came up with is the fact that people seem to not really know what real estate agents actually do. Like, what do we do? Like, obviously, we find people houses and we show people houses, but what are the other things that we do as real estate agents? So I thought we could maybe kind of go over that a little bit, Kenya.
You know, I think that's a great idea because I am under the impression that, you know, how I think people think of us is that, you know, we sort of like, you know, we meet you, we smile, we might be standing around an open house. Sometimes we put signs up and then we don't do much else. But in the end, we jump in a pile of gold, like, and we just frickin' swim in it. And I think that people need to know what we actually do.
I think that is a great idea, and we are totally going to get into it. You know, it's funny. A couple weeks ago, I was at an open house, and someone came in, and she said to me, "Oh, you're so lucky to be a real estate agent. I wish I had your life or your job." And I was like, I'm like, well, that's nice. I'm like, how do you feel about giving up every single Saturday and Sunday of your life and evenings and basically missing a large percentage of really important life events in your family? Like always having to decide if your client says, I'm only in town for one day and I absolutely need to see these places, and you've been working with them for 1.5 years to help find them a house, but that also just happens to be the same day as your child's really important baseball game.
Oh, yeah. I mean, I find myself weaving between work and family life a lot, you know, like I'm dropping my kid off, going to go work, but I have to go pick her up because she's got this other thing and I have 1 hour and then I have to like get back over to show this other thing. And I just answered a question the other night for one of my team members. He says, well, you know, when is the day done? And I go, when is the day
when
done?
I fall asleep.
Yeah, when I fall asleep is a good answer. But what I told him, when I'm done doing all of the things. So some days that might be 6 p.m., some days that might be midnight, 1 a.m, right. You know, because there are so many things that we're doing all the time. And so now I guess it's good to talk about what those things.
Exactly. Okay. So step number one, right? It's either a referral from a friend or a past client or somebody that found you on a review online, gives you a call and says, Kenya, Sarah, I need a real estate agent. I want to buy a house. Step number one. So the first thing I do, and Justin and I do on our team, we love to do a buyer consultation. I know you do the same thing, where we sit down with our buyers. And what are some of the things you ask a first-time buyer the first time you meet with them?
Sure. Well, I want to know really why now? I want to know what is calling them to purchase the home, because that's going to help a lot as well. Like, are you having a new baby? Do you feel like it's just time? Do you need to move closer to work? Do whatever the case may be, everybody has a reason. Do you just feel like you should? Right? Because those are all real conversations that we need to have.
So what's their true motivation?
Yeah. What is your true motivation? Because that's going to help in the search, you know?
And then what I do is, once I do the buyer consultation, I start basically pulling listings and going through inventory and seeing, it's been a very, very hard market for buyers, very difficult. So what a lot of people don't understand is that, you could be working with a couple and showing them houses every single weekend for months and months and months, and writing offers and having them be outbid, and writing offers and having them be outbid. And it can be really tough for buyers. So we like to set expectations in the beginning. Now, our market is starting to shift, but, months ago, we would say we need you to be prepared to write 10 offers before you get one accepted, unless you want to overpay for the house. And then if there is a market shift, you are putting yourself at risk, because if the comps show a house being 1.2 and you're paying 1.5 for it, you could be in trouble if the market shifts, especially if what you're paying for is pretty staging and pretty paint and things that aren't true value.
Absolutely. Absolutely. And, also I think and I know we're talking about the consultation, but one of the things that we do is help show people where they can, create that value.
Absolutely.
What can you do with your own elbow grease, and make the same money as property on 123 Main Street that's shiny and gorgeous. Our job is to point out the things that you can do down the street to bring your house up to speed like 123 Main Street, because we do that for our sellers all the time.
Absolutely. That's something that actually over the years, almost maybe over a decade in real estate now, is I truly have learned, and it has been a learning curve, what is value and what isn't. And it's so interesting to me now. I've seen so many houses. I can walk into a house and I don't even see the paint anymore. I don't see the furnishings. I see the layout. I see the location. I see the potential. And Justin, I know, and I have really tried to help our clients move from this beautiful ideal in their brain of what they want in a house to this is an investment. So this pretty staged, wonderful turnkey house versus this house that needs floor refinishing and paint and maybe bathroom renos is such a better buy.
Yeah.
Especially, a lot of time, if somebody's done a real cheap flip and it looks great right now and it looks great in pictures, those things are really short-lived, right? Like the gray floors already out.
Yeah.
Right? So now 3 years later, you want to sell. Now you got to tear out the gray floors and do whatever's popular this year, right? So concentrating on the fundamentals of what gives it value as opposed to the bells and whistles.
Right. And then the next step is scheduling the appointment. So another thing that is interesting being a real estate agent, it's not as easy as, okay, we're going to see 4 houses tomorrow. We'll meet you here, and you just go in a row. So there's different availabilities for showings that we have to try and figure out how much time needs to be spent per house to get us to the other house for time for the next appointment. And in LA, oh my gosh, that's probably one of the most difficult things we have to do because it's so unpredictable. One day it could take me 15 minutes to get from one place to another. The next, it could take an hour and 15 minutes.
Right. And you're balancing all of the avails, the seller's avail, the listing agent's avail, your client's avail, your own personal availability, because, as much as I think all of my clients think and feel like they're my only client, like that is my goal. I don't want you to feel like there are other people,
So
and I
true.
have weird things that I do around it. I do not answer the phone when I'm with you.
Yeah.
There are things that I do to make you feel that way. But the truth of the matter is there are 6 other people
Right.
so I have to balance my own schedule as well. And it's like herding cats.
Yeah.
Yeah. So if you spend 4 hours showing somebody houses, that probably represents an 8-hour investment of your time between finding the houses, calling the agents, setting up the route, all of that stuff.
Well, and it does get really challenging because a lot of our clients all want to see properties on the same day and the same time. And that's why, like, Justin being on our team is amazing, because we can kind of work together to make sure that people, and I know, Kenya, you have a team as well, because there are not enough hours in the day on Saturdays and Sundays to get people to properties. And if we have listings and we have open houses, that makes it even more challenging. But generally, people want to see houses on the same times, which is Saturday and Sunday afternoon. So it does make the time management a little tricky. Also, it gets challenging when a client, let's say the night before, will say, oh, these 3 more popped up. Can we go see those too? Right. So it's rerouting, changing appointments, maybe trying to bump other clients to different time slots so that you can also show those people. And it does get, time management. I mean, I think the number one skill of a good real estate agent is time management, because without a good time management, you will not be successful in this career. You just can't.
And being an unlicensed psychologist.
Oh, yeah. And an unlicensed psychologist. That's so true.
You're all of the things. You're an unlicensed psychologist. You're a contractor. Yeah. You're like you wear a million hats. But you know what's funny? We just spoke for 15 minutes about just showings only. Right. And that's still just the tip of the iceberg.
Absolutely.
Right?
Well, and then another thing that I would say is also kind of a buyer's tip is it's really important when you are meeting an agent to be on time. Now, I also feel this the other way too. Real estate agents have to be on time. To me, unless there's something crazy happens, I am always 15 minutes early for every appointment, because it's just, so it gets really tough when someone shows up chronically late, because then it bumps your other appointments and it throws your whole schedule off. So being timely is really, really important. And it's hard in LA because traffic, again, is really inconsistent. So
well, I'm over here giggling because you're better than I. I tend to appointments at 4, 3:59, skirt, here I am. So you are better than I. And it's funny because a lot of my clients, I know which clients are always going to be late. And so I literally bake that time into the appointment. But you're 100% correct. At least try to be close to on time, because it is a delicate dance.
Yeah, I've done that with clients too that are chronically late, that I'll just tell them, like, text me when you're on your way. And then I won't leave until they do that, because otherwise it's too much. So, okay, so we've talked about showings. Now, the other thing that we do as agents is if someone is truly interested in a property, we try and get as much information as possible. So that could be pulling public records to see how many bedrooms and bathrooms, the square footage that's on public records, to see how it compares with the listing. To show what kind of maybe hidden square footage, maybe there were additions done without permits, trying to get that information. And then obviously pulling all the comparable properties in the neighborhood and trying to figure out a value.
And having a chat with the listing agent to find out what it is, what else that, is there anything else that we can't see that they know that we should have that information so we can relay it to our clients.
So important. And then what would you say, and I know this might be shifting now, but what would your average of offers be per client as far as like the last, year for getting one accepted?
My average, I would say I was writing between 4 and 6.
Yeah. And I think we were closer to 10. We tend to be a little bit more conservative. We also have clients that love what everybody loves. So it gets very challenging. So for every client writing 4 to 6 to 10 offers in this crazy competitive market, it's a lot. It's really challenging. And again, I know you do the same thing. You set expectations. So people aren't expecting to get their first offer accepted. Sometimes it happens. We had that happen with a client, and we were all doing a very big happy dance because that's pretty unusual in this market.
My favorite is when you tell them, oh, it's going to be 10 to 12, they get their first offer accepted, and then they wonder what's wrong.
Yeah. They're waiting for the other shoe to drop.
You're just super lucky right now. Yeah. So, this last few years was quite the challenge, with the buyers. It was, lots of blood, sweat, and tears from the buyers, tears on our end, because we get invested in your future as well.
Yeah, we do. That's my least favorite part about being an agent is giving the bad news that I'm sorry, the house you absolutely love is, you were outbid on.
Mm-hmm.
My favorite thing is what I learned from Kenya, which is to call with the fake you lost the house and then turn it.
Kenya, do you do that?
Yeah. I saw her do it, and then I've done it ever since.
No, my gosh.
Oh man, I was telling you it was going to be a real heavy lift on this one, and you got the house.
Oh my gosh, I don't think my heart could handle that. It's so funny. I'm such an empath, and I really, the last couple of years, had to turn off my empath, switch, because it would be so hard. And we did truly, tears, people crying, people, I don't even want to look anymore. And this could be someone we spent a year with.
Oh, yeah.
And I don't even want to look. I don't care anymore. I don't even, or sometimes people will try a new agent after, being constantly disappointed. And it truly is just the market. We're really conservative about values. And if somebody wants to overpay, they have that choice. But we'll warn them that at this point, we feel like this might not be a very good investment or a wise investment. But yeah, that's really hard when people are really upset. And I don't want to complain about our job because I love being a real estate agent. I love real estate. I love helping people get into homes and starting their financial freedom by having a property. But I think it's good to let people know exactly what we do. Now, Kenya, can you please explain to people how we get paid at the end of the day? And how do we get paid as real estate agents? Do we get a check every 2 weeks? Does our brokerage put us on payroll? Explain to everyone listening how we actually get paid.
Got it. So it's kind of a funny thing because I believe that, people may think that we I would say almost make more than we do, right? So how we get paid is this: when we're representing, say, a buyer. It's a little different when you're representing a seller. So when you're representing a buyer, that listing agent, right, has already negotiated a commission with the seller. Now that could be anything. It could be any commission. It could be 0.5%, 1%, 1.5, 2.5. If you're lucky, maybe you get to 3, but that's getting crazy. So that commission has already been negotiated. And that listing agent offers a portion of their entire commission. So they negotiate a portion. They negotiate commission. I know I'm talking in circles. And then they offer a portion of that commission on the MLS.
So the listing agent gets paid from the seller,
yes,
or the listing agent's brokerage, I should say. And the brokerage basically is the oversight. So it's almost like a law firm. They have their lawyers. Real estate agents, we work for a broker. The broker's responsible for our behavior, responsible for the financials. They have a lot of backline things to keep in compliance. So basically the big commission for the listing agent goes to the brokerage. And then our broker gets paid out of that commission.
Yes. And then that listing agent says, hey, whoever is representing the buyer, we're going to offer you a part of what it is that we've negotiated. So that's how the buyer's agent gets paid, essentially. And what I tell my clients is, what's kind of funny is we are kicking it for 2, 3, 6 months, a year. I had some clients for 2 years, and I'm not getting paid to hang out with you.
Right.
It's for funsies, really.
Right.
It's because I enjoy you
Right.
until you close, and
Right.
you may buy a house, or you may change your mind, because you have that right.
Yeah. Or you may move away. I had a couple clients I was working with for over a year and a half, and they decided to move out of state. So, but it's part of the job. So not every buyer that we work with closes on a house. And then out of that, so our commission, let's say I'm working as a buyer's agent and we do close on a house. So what happens is at close, the deal is over. That commission money goes to our broker. Our broker takes whatever our split is, and they keep the rest. When you first get started as an agent, that split can be very high. It can be the broker keeps 40% in some places, sometimes 50%, depending on where you are and what your brokerage is offering you. Sometimes they offer training. Sometimes they offer free classes and office. As you are more established, you keep more of that commission. And then out of that, we are responsible for taxes, obviously. Something called E&O insurance, which is basically like a real estate insurance that we pay. We're responsible, obviously, for all of our out-of-pocket costs. So our phone, our gas, our car insurance, any of our office supplies, all of our marketing, open house signs, anything basically else that we need as a real estate agent comes out of that. And then our licensing and board fees, which are thousands of dollars a year. So part of why you don't see a ton of part-time real estate agents is to be a real estate agent that's not working, you have a lot of fees coming out of pocket. So you would lose money every year if you didn't close on at least a few properties.
So it's not a, Scrooge McDuck pile of money. There is a lot of overhead, a lot of overhead. And then if you have a team, like I have a team, I have staff. I have an operations manager. I have a showing assistant. So, and those staff members are salaried staff members.
Right. And
So,
we're out of pocket. Real estate agents are out of pocket for health insurance as well.
yeah.
And we do not have sick pay. We don't have vacation days. There's no such thing. So, it's interesting. I do think there's a little bit of a misperception on how much money we make and versus how much money we keep. We do make a good amount of money, but out of that, a lot of that, unfortunately, we don't get to keep. And then, of course, taxes on top of that.
Right. We're business owners.
And, if the market does shift and things happen, like during the pandemic for the stay-at-home order, like many people, we weren't for quite a while able to work. So, people that, just like everybody else, I mean, it's really, it's not a super consistent paycheck. And that's something that I think is hard about being a real estate agent, but it's also exciting because you make your own destiny.
That is true. You work hard, you do well. You do a great job for your clients, you do well. So that is one of the benefits of it. I thought one of the benefits would be having a lot of free time. But as it turns out, I work roughly 7 days a week. And that is not, in fact, one of the benefits.
It's very
I
true.
think people think we have like a lot of, I think people think we also have a lot of time because, if you look on TikTok, you have these realtors and it just seems like they're having like all this fun. I'm like, I don't know. I always say I need a hobby. My hobby is real estate.
Yeah, we live and breathe real estate. Well, we haven't even talked at all about what we do actually after an offer gets accepted, but that's another huge chunk. So let's come right back after this buyer's tip and talk about that. Here's a buyer's tip. Parking, parking, parking. If you're new to LA, parking can be very difficult. So if you're considering buying a house here, Make sure to check out if there is plenty of parking. If you are only able to do street parking, drive by on a weekend and see how many spots there are, because parking can be a big issue. Okay, Kenya. So now escrow has been open. So what does a real estate agent do the second escrow gets open, which is basically an offer has been written and hallelujah, it's been accepted. And then we do intros to the lender and escrow and boom. Now what happens? What do you do?
So it's kind of funny because I always tell my clients there's all the work up front to get to the house. There's the negotiation of the offer. There's the offer acceptance. But now I go from, I always say I go from entertainer, I go from front of the camera to producer.
Oh, that's a good analogy. I love that.
Yeah, because for all the way up and through now, I've been in front of the camera. We've been having a great time. We've been laughing and joking and looking at homes and, but now I put my producer hat on because now my job is to make sure that all of these fools keep it together.
Yeah.
The lender, the escrow company, the title company, so we've got to order your home warranty. There's like a million things that start cooking. Yeah. Like the moment your offer is accepted. So offers accepted. First thing I do, intro email, timelines, get all of the pertinent information to the correct folks.
Yeah.
The lender needs the contract, escrow needs the contract, escrow and the lender need to be put in touch. We got to make sure we have the title report ordered. So you're starting to get all of these things together. So while you're getting all of these people in order, you then have to start scheduling inspections because we have to do our diligence on the home and we have a very short period of time to do it.
Absolutely.
So it's a second herding of the cats, making sure that in that timeline, because, you have a certain period of time to do all of your diligence. And that timeline, my job is to make sure that you get in there and get it done.
And
we put reports back.
It gets a little tricky because we, again, just like the showings, there's a lot of people we have to get to be at the property at the same time. So we might be ordering a sewer scope. We might be obviously a whole home inspection. Termite inspection. If we notice some other issues, we might do a pool inspection. We might have a chimney inspection, and trying to get all those people to the place at the same time, which is really funny because you can set them up, let's say a 5-hour scope where all these inspectors are coming, and you'll have someone come at 9:30, someone come at 10, someone come at 11. So you kind of try and stagger. They always either all show up at the same time or they'll show up a little late. Like, you can never get all the people there staggered ever. Someone will be early, someone will be late, and then they are all there at the exact same time wanting to talk to you at the same time.
Except during COVID where they weren't allowed to be there at the same time, and that was a whole different problem.
Oh, man. And that would just, inspections would take forever. The whole day.
Yeah, you have to block a day.
Right. And then sometimes during these inspections, so then we get all the reports from the inspectors. And sometimes during these inspections, something will come up that will want us to do another inspection. For example, we're looking in the crawl space and our whole home inspector says, I don't know, there's some black markings here. It could be mold. Well, then maybe we want to bring in a mold specialist. Or maybe we see some weird stuff in the foundation. That's a very common one because the houses in LA sometimes are 100 years old and the foundations
and
often need work. Always. They need work. So not only do we want someone to say, okay, this is, it might look bad. We want to know how much that will cost to fix. So then we have the foundation people come in to give a quote, and those guys are always super booked up. So that gets a little tricky. So getting all the inspectors out and then thoroughly reading through the inspections and trying to answer questions that the buyers have on the inspections. What's a big deal? What's not a big deal? Some of the most common things we see are things like, for example, every inspection, I swear to God, the door from the garage into the house, it's supposed to be like a heavy self-closing door. Yeah, fire rated. They never are. I think almost every house in LA that I've seen, I think in the last decade, maybe only a few houses have not had termite issues.
Yeah. I had one last year and I couldn't believe it. I couldn't believe it. I was like, are you serious? Not one termite, not one. Shocked. So yeah, there's always, sewer line, there's generally a little something going on.
Yeah. What about you, Justin? What's some of the most common things?
Definitely, I like, most houses, east side, built in the 20s, so none of them are bolted. So that's also part of the job, right? Is helping the clients kind of understand. Like they'll freak out. Oh my God, I saw all this stuff in red, and it's like, wait, no house from the 20s is bolted unless somebody did the retrofit.
Right.
It's been standing for 100 years. It's there is a risk there, but just understanding it, so helping them interpret that, so helping them not freak out about stuff they don't necessarily need to freak out about. And sometimes, if they're totally in love with the house, that you just think like, oh no,
Right.
like having their best interests at heart and actually like telling them like you should drop this house.
Justin and I had some clients this year that we had a discussion with them and told them our recommendation was to walk away from the house because the inspections were so bad and that was just the stuff we could see. An inspector cannot see inside the walls. We see this a lot with bad flips too. A bad flip where you see things cutting corners in stuff that's visible, you really have to worry about corners being cut under the walls.
People might not realize this, but your inspector's not allowed to poke a hole in the wall.
Right. I don't think people do realize that. I always explain that to them. They can't look in the walls.
So a lot of flippers will. Have you seen this, Kenny? I know you've seen this, where they cover the eaves and then spray it with that really, really thick paint stuff. And it's just like, whenever I see that, I'm like, or the decks that they just cover in like that inch coating, and you're just like, how
What
much
are they
dry
hiding?
rot is under there, right?
Yeah.
You'll never see it, but I kind of know it's there when I see them covering it up.
Well, and that's the thing too. I now have seen enough houses that I see red flags. So there's properties where I'll see a few things and it'll just give me a feeling, like I tell my kids. It's your intuition, right? You get an icky feeling in your tummy. That's how I talk about it with my kids. Where I see red flags and I think, I don't think this is a good one. And there have been many of those over the years. There's some great renovation contractors that do incredible work and truly renovate and restore these gorgeous old craftsmen's and Spanish houses. And another red flag is often these will be unpermitted renovations. So if somebody hasn't pulled the permits to do the reno and they've done major structural things or major plumbing or electrical, you do have to be a little bit concerned about that, because why didn't they pull the permits?
Yes. And it's kind of sad how many of those we do see around. And what I tell my clients is, if you're going to embark on one of these journeys, right? If you look at it as, well, the kitchen is pretty and the bathrooms are pretty, but I probably still need to go in and do work. You have to just know that there's going to be some unsexy things that you have to do, but at least the sexy things are finished. Or we could go the other way, where the house is fantastic, but you're going to have to do the kitchen and the bathrooms. I also didn't mention that the fireplace almost always has trouble.
It's so true. So any house that was built before, like literally the last 20 years, the chimney is not going to be up to code. The fire, it's just, they're going to tell you it's not safe, because none of these old chimneys will meet current code. None of them do. So this is why, as a buyer, you'll often see in the listing, it'll say fireplace decorative only. That basically means this house has an old chimney. No fire inspector is going to come and say that it's safe. So use at your own risk, basically. And there are things you can do to make it safer, but it's just par for the course. It's if you're buying an old house, it's going to have a chimney that has some issues.
Yep.
So what else? So Kenya, we got the inspections back. We see that there's a whole bunch of things. Next step as a real estate agent.
All right. So, well, now we have to buy the house for the second time. And what I mean by that, so you bought it once, you always buy a house twice. You bought it once, you inspect it, and now you have to figure out if you want to buy it again. So we have usually some sort of secondary negotiation where we, say there's a whole host of items wrong with the home. We need to figure out whether or not we can get the seller to help us with those items. And it's interesting because over the past few years, this is starting to shift now, which is making me happy. our counters would say, as is, no is, as is, where is, no repairs,
Right.
no warranties, we're not doing seller, we're not fix anything. It was absolutely insane. But now, recently we had a big old sewer line problem under a slab foundation, and it was quote unquote as is. And we asked for $40,000 and they gave it to us.
Wow. That's incredible.
Yeah.
That's
Yeah.
great.
I always say as is as is does. You can always ask,
Yeah.
and you should, right? You shouldn't have to, in my opinion, move forward with a property that's in like the kind of disrepair that's just disrespectful. So if there's something that you couldn't see when you walked in, like the sewer line is broken, I think that is a reasonable ask.
Yeah, absolutely.
Now, from the other side, we do stuff for our sellers to sort of minimize the probability that will happen to them, right?
Right.
Yeah.
So a good agent will do pre-inspections,
Always
recommend doing pre-inspections, and make sure that the buyers, but while they're giving their offers, have signed off on a receipt of reports, and they know everything that's wrong with it, so they can't come back to you the next week and say, "Aha!
Yeah.
I want $10,000 off for the decorative chimney."
I actually love this on both sides. I love it on both sides when pre-inspections are done because my buyers have a true idea of what they're in for if they buy the house. And as a listing agent, it does sometimes take away the entire secondary round of negotiations. But as agents, when we're working with buyers, this is a big, big part of our job is really trying to get those credits or repairs done. Now, it's a fine line because if you are an agent that is notorious for fighting, and making it a lose-win for your client, other agents will warn their clients not to work with you. So, for example, if there's an agent that's notoriously fights for credits and we're reviewing offers, the listing agent can say, look, I've worked with this agent before. They threatened to walk away unless we gave them this massive credit. And I just recommend we take this other offer, even though it's a tiny bit lower. I know this agent's easier to work with. So it's a fine line, and it really is a balancing act and another really tricky part of our job. So I know, Kenya, you and I both love win-wins, but there is a point where what we think is fair for the buyers, fair for the sellers. If there is a massive issue with the house, it is fair for the buyers if it wasn't disclosed for them to get repairs or credits for that or a price reduction. So that's part of it. And then, of course, we fight for the, not fight, but we negotiate the inspections. And then a lot of other problem solving has to come up. There could be hiccups with the loan process. There could be hiccups on title. Sometimes there's a mechanic's lien or some weird things show up on title. All types of issues. There's something in LA called the 9A report. Sometimes, this has happened many times with me, a property will show as never having gotten a sewer permit.
I've had that a few times this year.
Yeah, it happens a lot in Glassdale Park because a lot of those houses were really, really old and never hooked up. So dealing with the city to get that taken care of, that is not a fun process. And it's always very challenging to get that taken care of. But I've done it. Were you able to get the permit?
Yes, actually, a few times. We've had three this year. One, my clients, they opted not to. They weren't for whatever reason particularly concerned about it. We explained what the risk of not having a sewer line permit might be. The other two, we were able to get it handled. You just have to get it scoped and get somebody from the city out.
And then after that, so all the problem solving, and really, truly, there is a lot of problem solving. I mean, there's so many things that come up during escrow that fires we have to put out. It's actually very unusual. We get an escrow that just closes and everything's fine and there aren't any issues. We just had one, but it felt like a miracle.
Right. And, another thing is I think all of these things happen and we do our best to shield our clients from it, right?
Right. A lot of this stuff clients don't ever find out about because we just manage them and try and make it not their problem because buying a house is already so stressful.
So I think ultimately people feel like not a lot is going on in the background. They're just kind of working on their loan and we're just sitting back with our feet on, up on a
Right.
table. But, the goal is to make it so that they don't feel the burn of being in escrow,
Right.
all that it actually is,
Right. It's so true.
Also, a good agent will be keeping everybody else, because sometimes you don't have the dream team. Sometimes you do. But sometimes you don't have the dream team, and sometimes they've chosen a lender for whatever reason. You can't text on weekends, and all the support staff is in Texas, and they're a couple hours ahead, and you can't reach them after X hour of the day, right? So making sure all of everything that everybody else is supposed to be doing is happening on the timelines so that you can close on time. Or else you could find your buyer could find themselves in breach because somebody didn't do something, right?
I'm in the middle of that right now. I've got a buyer who switched lenders 10 days in. And my buyer, I said, this is a bad idea with this particular lender who will not be named. I know I've had experience. We will not close on time. Buyer says, oh no, lender promised me it's going to happen on time. Today is the day we close. And I just found out that we're 2 weeks late now.
Oh, that's tough.
We're an escrow company.
Escrow company I've never used before. But now, what I have to do for my client doesn't really realize the 52 conversations that I'm having to keep my client in escrow, because this was a problem that my client created. We had a plan. The plan was in action. My client then pivoted without letting anybody know. But I'm going to do all of the cleanup for my client and make sure that my client can still move in, even though this is. And, these are the things that keep me up at night.
Yeah, that's really challenging. Also a good lesson for listeners that once you commit to a lender, it's important to stick with someone. You can get promised teaser rates. People seem to really focus on rates, but honestly, if you can't close your loan, doesn't matter what your rate is. Doesn't matter what your rate is. It's really important to use people that are notoriously responsive, that don't miss timelines, that won't tell you what you want to hear and then give you bad news later. Really, really important. And trust your realtor on who a bunch of recommendations. We have to be impartial as far as lenders. It's illegal for us to get referrals or kickbacks from lenders. So when we recommend people, we're not getting anything out of it other than the fact that we've used this person before. We have a good working relationship with them. We trust that they can meet their timelines. That's the most important thing.
Absolutely. And I have a host of phenomenal lenders. Right? Phenomenal lenders. If you're concerned about the rate, I got somebody for you. If you love service, I've got somebody for you. I saw you were talking to Natalie Salins with Movement earlier. She is amazing and one of the top lenders. Absolutely, because she gets it done. So, I say, is that fraction of a point really worth your sanity?
Right. Or
at the end,
closing.
We should also point out that the rate that they're quoted, in advance of going into escrow, it's going to change every day.
Multiple times a day. Absolutely. So if you're getting quoted a rate before you have locked in, it's not a real number. It's somebody telling you something. And that happens a lot with these online lenders that, all of a sudden, wow, all these different fees and they can't close on time and their appraisal takes 2 weeks. And oh no, you've missed your contingencies and your deadlines and your conditions. Anyways, we could go on and on. Kenya, I'm so bummed I have to wrap this up. It's always so great to have you on the show. Thank you so much for being here. I know. We have so many more things to talk about.
We have to do a part 2.
We're going to have to do a part 3, 4, 5.
Absolutely.
On Sarah's deck with some wine.
Yes.
Yeah. Oh,
yes. In.
On the deck with
Thank
wine.
you, Kenya. We'll
Thank
talk
you for
to you
having
soon.
me.
Here's a buyer's tip. It is so important to be prepared in case of emergencies or earthquakes. Did you know that if there is a major earthquake in LA, that you should plan to prepare for at least 3 days before you can get emergency services, which means you need to be prepared in case there's no running water, in case you can't get medical attention. So in your house, you should have plenty of bottled water. You should have first aid kits. And a great tip is to have a backpack under your bed with a good pair of running shoes, a change of clothes, some emergency supplies. So if in the middle of the night you have to rush out of your house, you are ready to go. Natalie, welcome to the studio. So great to have you.
Nice to be here.
Natalie Salins from Movement Mortgage. We love her. The one, the only, the fabulous singer. Natalie is an amazing, amazing singer. If you didn't know that, she is. So there you go.
Oh, boy.
She's a triple threat.
Oh,
Beautiful,
boy.
can sing, and can mortgage the heck out of things. So, Natalie, tell me, we got a shift. Rates are crazy. What is going on in the mortgage market? Because it's just blowing all of our minds. So give us an update.
It is. It blows my mind every day. You know, lots of things. Inflation, rates going up. They're going to continue trending up until the end of the year. It's funny. It's like an up and a down and up and a down. I spoke to somebody today that I qualified in April, and shockingly enough, my rate is the same because we've had these like really varying shifts of up a lot, and then it'll shift down, and then up a little and down a little. And it's very kind of mountainous if you look at the graphs right now. In the beginning of the year, let's say at least until April, May, it was really just a sliding mountain up.
Wow.
And then since then, it's really kind of moved up, down, up, down, up, down to where we're holding steady in the mid to low fives, basically.
Mid to low fives. I was just going to ask you, like, where are we looking? So mid to low fives. Wow. What a difference a couple of years makes.
What a difference a couple of years makes. I think that, or what a difference 6 months makes. I think that, you know, it obviously came up faster than we had hoped and were expecting. But the Fed is on a path to cut this inflation down, start a small kind of mini recession that they're looking in order to kind of calm things down in the country right now.
And I guess to be fair, everybody's been warned for the last 2 years that rates are going up. And I think people got so comfortable with the fact that they could lock in the threes or even in the twos in some cases.
Yeah.
I refinanced with you guys to a 2.5% rate, which is crazy, 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 crazy. So can you please tell me a little as well about, do you think now is a better time to do an adjustable rate because rates could shift down and people could refinance? However, they could also just keep trending up for years and years. What's your opinion on adjustable rates right now?
I think it's, a great option if they're better. On conventional loans, ARMs, so that's adjustable rate mortgage, ARMs are not terribly competitive. They get better when you work into the jumbo world, which in Los Angeles County is anything over a loan amount of $970,000, at least in 2022. And then you're seeing good ARM options, probably in the mid fours right now, maybe mid to low fours, depending on the file. I think it just depends. How I've been telling people to understand ARM options is that if I do a 7-year ARM, I always like that and prefer that. It's somewhere in the middle of a 5 and a 10. 10 rates are not great right now. The 7-year ARM, they have 7 years to refinance if they love the property. And if not, then they have the option in 7 years to see it adjust or sell. Mm-hmm. I think that based on what people want and if it's their first home or what kind of property they're getting into, I think they say something like a whopping 92% of first-time home buyers get out of their first home within 7 years, 5 to 7 years. So it doesn't have to be a scary option for most people. And I think that 7 years is a long time to think about refinancing.
A lot can happen in 7 years.
Natalie, it's Justin checking in.
Justin's here.
What?
He's hiding in the corner. He just popped in with coffees for us.
Mr. Justin.webb.
How you doing? I just wanted to chime in here on this point. So a lot of people are, after what happened with ARMs in the last downturn, they're really nervous about them. But say you were going for a jumbo and it was a really good option, and there's a 92% chance that your are going to either sell or refinance in the next 7 years. Can you just touch upon like how likely it is that everybody's going to default at the same time again? And, you know, because it seems like everybody can afford their loans now.
Basically, what's the difference between now and 2008?
Oh, it's such a huge difference. So 2008 was an actual housing crisis. We are not in a housing crisis right now. I think the likelihood of people defaulting is very small. We vet people's income and verify assets, and we know they can afford the mortgage that they are taking on now. In 2008, we had no idea because we were not verifying documentation. You know, I worked for Countrywide and it was called Fast and Easy for a reason. It was called our Fast and Easy loan. We did not get assets. We did not get income documentation. If they had a credit score and they were breathing, they got a loan.
Mm-hmm.
So it's a very, very different situation. I think some people may default, of course, on the off chance they lose jobs, or if they buy something, I hate to say it, but possibly much, much higher than what the property is worth.
Mm-hmm.
And then values go down a little, they might feel like they want to get out of it in short sale. Very small percentage of people will do that because I think everybody learned from 2008.
Mm-hmm.
A lot of my clients short sold in 2008, 2009. I mean, so many killed their credit. They weren't able to buy for many, many years after. And I think they found that like, oh, what? 3 or 4 years later, property is back to the value that they bought it at. Right. They really wish they stayed in the property because at this point, 10 years later or more, the property has quadrupled or more in value from what they bought it in 2008. So I think if you love your home, you stay in it, sit tight, like values go up and down. We're dealing with a market. That is what it is, you know?
And that's something we really try and focus on with our buyers. So sometimes our buyers get outbid and they lose out on houses when we say to them, anything over this, we think you're overpaying for the home. And you could, if the market shifts, be out a lot of money. So we always try and keep that perspective that people are getting good buys. They're buying houses that are not at the peak of their potential, that they can add value to. They can do a reno and make it worth a lot more. So that's something we really focus on with our buyers. We try to. Natalie, once again, you are so wonderful. Thank you so much for coming on the podcast. You always have so much information. And yeah, you're our fave. Thank you. Get out there and help people get into houses.
That's right. That's what we do.
Okay. Thank you, Natalie.
You're so welcome. Thanks, guys.
Bye.
Bye.
Thank you for listening to the LA Real Estate Podcast. I'm your host, Sara Skelton. With me is Justin.webb.
Hi, Sarah.
From the Skelton Group. Thank you for listening to us. And a special thank you to my guest, Natalie Salins from Movement Mortgage. And of course, the one and only Kenya Reeves-Costa from Compass, one of my dear friends and a wonderful power agent. Thanks for listening. If you need a realtor anywhere in North America, please reach out to us. We have a team all over the place. We've got agents in Canada. We have agents all over California. We have agents in Chicago. We have agents in New York and San Francisco, everywhere. So please reach out to us. Our info is in the podcast notes. Thanks for listening, and we'll see you on the next one.